A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime.
Burn, motherfucker! Burn! The roof is on fire! The roof is on fire!
Not good. I can't play that. I didn't even know what that was. And then I'm like, oh my God, no. I can't play that. First of all, I got my dad in the background there. It's like, how can I do that? That's wrong. That was wrong. That was also, I apologize. That was all sorts of levels of wrong. And then the really sad thing is that made me like uncomfortable, but like it was the copyright that made me be like, oh my God, hell no. Oh no, we're not doing that. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the fine program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. This evening, a special edition of the following program. I am privileged to bring to you all my dad, yes, who's affectionately referred to as Great Lawgic. I will warn you that he's having all sorts of tech difficulties, so we're not going to actually see my father. You're just going to hear him. That's just the way it's got to be tonight. You got the little black screen thing going on there.
I apologize.
You don't. No need to be no need to apologize. It's tech difficulties happen. Look, if I'm a boomer, so I have to be like, it's like if you were better at this than I am, like how humiliating would that be? So really, I'm sure he's got this thing worked out in like 4K high definition. But in order to make me look good, my dad is pretending that the video isn't working for him. But the important thing that my father brings to this show, as many of you who are watching the show are likely aware, my father has a doctorate in medieval Christian relations. So, medieval Muslim Christian relations. Did I not say that? I might have said that wrong. Okay. Medieval Muslim Christian relations, and accordingly, whenever events pop up that have to do with current events relate to the Middle East, I work very hard to try and find some time to get my dad in on the show, because most of my perspectives about the Middle East are gleaned from things I learned from my dad just growing up around him and hearing him speak on the topic rather frequently, and sometimes in situations that I didn't really expect him to, but all of a sudden we just got a history lecture from my dad, who was a history professor, and he that actually comes in handy when we're actually trying to understand events that are going on in the Middle East today. So especially with us engaging in what I wouldn't call a hot war with Iran, but as close as you can get to a hot war without it. If it's not one, it's as close as you can get without being one. So I thought it was appropriate and helpful to you for me to actually ask my father to join us this evening, and he has decided to grace us with his presence so I can basically get his perspectives about what we should anticipate for Iran. What would be a healthy approach? What is, in an ideal scenario, what is more likely to unfold given the history of the region, which obviously when you're talking about Iran, that's a nation which has one of the richest histories going back 3 millennia nearly. As far as having a rich history, it's one of the oldest regions of recorded history in the world. So I thought that my father would be able to provide unique perspectives that hopefully you'll all find enlightening and engaging and informative. So this way, when you're hearing about how the government of Iran is developing, that you can sort of, perhaps think that this is a healthy thing or perhaps an unhealthy thing that we see developing. So most of the time tonight, I am going to do very little talking. When my father comes on the show, this is it. This is the what you hear now in this introduction is the longest I'm going to talk during the course of this show, which is what my audience tends to really appreciate. If you have questions for my father, what I plan on doing is I have a goal tonight, which is if we had 15 Super Chats, Rumble Rants, Digger Dollars, or anything else in quantities of $10 or more, I will open up a call-in show for people to call in and talk to my dad. I'd rather, and I'll try to do it sooner rather than later because my father he's an octogenarian. So, I don't want to keep him till 2 o'clock in the morning here. He certainly wouldn't make it. So that's why I want to try it. As soon as we get there, I'll open up a segment on that because I don't know. I don't know how long we get to get graced by my father. So I'm just going to, before you come in here, I'm just going to pull open a couple of chats that came in here, and then we'll start the conversation. That work for you, Daddy?
Fine. Okay.
All right. The first one that came in here is, what's the over-under on the new Supreme Leader? And hello, Great Lawgic. What's the over-under for how long do you think he'll still be here?
We're going to talk. I'll talk about this.
All right. So
anyway.
Do you think he's long for this world, or that they're going to eradicate him?
I don't know. Maybe they're going to kill him. I don't know what the government knows about who is what. Mm-hmm. I know recently there was a thing that I saw tonight, actually, claiming that the Iranians were monitoring preparations for this war extensively because they had a mole who set up the government communications with the army, and they were reading the communications directly until about 3 weeks ago, which may have been one of the reasons why they delayed everything. You don't know. I mean, this is what people claim. But this is not really what I wanted to initiate this, little, shall we say, presentation or discussion tonight. I wanted to start with something else. And I think it's very important for people to understand what I'm going to start with, because I think that provides a certain context for the war and for what's going on. First of all, I want to make clear, and although I am a rabbi as well as a PhD, and obviously I am a devout Jew, I don't see this war about Israel, really. This is not really about Israel. And I'm going to explain why. To do that, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go way back. It's more than 6 decades ago when I was in graduate school. And I was taking a course with a very wonderful man. He later sat on my doctoral committee because he knew medieval history. His name was David Hicks. I'm sure he is not in this world now because he was a big smoker and he was a lot older than I. And Professor Hicks was talking about the Reformation. And one of the things that I appreciated very clearly about this was that during the period, say, from around 1550 to 1649, and there's a reason for that date, which we're not going to get into here unless someone asks, during that period, people fought wars because of religion. They really believed in religion, many of the people then. And in fact, the books describing events in what Americans call the Protestant Reformation, those books that were written by Roman Catholics had a different title for it. It was called The Revolt from the Holy Mother Church. It's a whole different perspective on this because religion really mattered.
But it's an interesting thing that the framing, right, will vary significantly. And we see that carried on even to today with respect to the way news will cover stories and their framing to sculpt what the entire story really is for their followers.
And if you travel down to drive down to Florida and stop in South Carolina, and you talk about the war between 1861 and 1865, you're going to hear about the war between the states, not the Civil War. That's the perspective. It's a different perspective.
And with respect to that, that's because they didn't look at it as a civil war. They looked at it as if they were a separate entity.
Correct.
And they're
100%.
right.
Now, but so why am I mentioning this? Because when the Ayatollah or those who support him, and there are tens of thousands, probably millions there, that really support his position believe that the United States is Shaitan al-Kabel, the great Satan, and that Israel is Shaitan al-Sa'ad, the smaller Satan, the small Satan. And they really believe this. Now, if we want to get into this a little more later, we can talk about it in detail. I'm going to give you a very, very brief outline of Shi'ism, which Shia actually comes from the Arabic word for a group or a party, like a political party. It's not used in current parlance, but it was Shi'at Ali. This is the Shia, those people who have a very different view of eschatological times, that's the end of days times, than do most of the Sunni. They are awaiting the return of the 12th Imam, who disappeared during the 10th century, and they're awaiting his return. And what would bring his return? The destruction of the Kufr, the non-believers, and the ascension of the Shia. And remember, the Shia think that they have the proper, shall we say, mantle of Islam, the proper belief of Islam. The Kurds I'll talk about them a little bit later. All right. Now, the Kurds it's much more political, but I'll get.
We'll come into them soon. Yeah.
I see that's what a question. That's why I mentioned that.
Right.
All right. Now, so the bottom line here is that yes, they want a nuclear weapon, and I have no doubt that they would not really hesitate to use the nuclear weapon. Now, let me give you one more quick story. Going back to when I was in college and in yeshiva in the morning and in college in the afternoon, I lived in NYU. Then they had a dormitory in the Bronx, which later was sold off. And I remember this is 1963, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I remember sitting on the floor and I was terrified that the world's going to be blown apart. And it was a very scary feeling at that time. And it really didn't happen. Why? Because Khrushchev blinked. So why did Khrushchev blink? Because Khrushchev didn't believe in the afterlife. He's a communist, has no belief in God, no belief in afterlife. These guys believe that if you kill them, they go to heaven. So there's no concept of balance of terror when you're dealing with these guys. That's one very cogent reason why they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Now, I'm going to talk just a little bit.
Before we get into like a different thing, I'll just point out to you that those people who oppose our intervention in Iran, they tend to come from a perspective that we keep hearing about this nuclear weapon that Iran's getting, and that it was destroyed in the summer, and here it is, we're 8 months later, we're going in there, and that it seems like it's a perpetual boogeyman that our government is using for purposes of trying to motivate our support for a war that is really more about our support for our military industrial complex, and these big donors who give lots of money to encourage the government to buy more and more weapons, but that's not something that's actually feeding American interests, because they look at it as a manufactured boogeyman, the nuclear weapon threat.
Let me put it this way. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, when I heard about Iran and I heard that they were trying to get a nuclear weapon, right away, my reaction, again, as a religious person, I understand the force of religion. A lot of people, even if they believe, they don't quite get it. And they certainly don't believe what these people believe about the end of days.
Yeah.
These people have a very definite plan. And giving them a nuclear weapon, I think, is exceedingly dangerous. And yes, I understand the concept of the weapons and the and you want to call it the military-industrial complex. In fact, one of the reasons that the Supreme Council chose Mushtaba Khamenei and wants to continue what's going on is because you have a military industrial group in Iran that's making a lot of money. There is a group of people in Iran that are very, very wealthy. And these people are wealthy because they are making weapons which are being given away to the so-called axis of resistance, missiles and bombs and all sorts of things. And they are making a fortune on this. And they want to continue the idea of Iran being able to do this.
Yeah, but Daddy, my point about the military industrial complex was that's in America. The thought is,
I know that.
Right, not the Iranians.
I understand that.
Okay.
And I understand that there is profit in that. But I also, from what I've seen of Trump, generally he's tried not to do this. Right. I do believe this is a war which has to be pursued until the government changes. Now, I also believe that the president made a mistake in saying he wants to change the government. What he should have said is pursuing the war in order to free the Iranian people, not to change the government. Now, why? Because the Iranians, believe it or not, have a strong sense, I won't want to use the word nationalism, because it's not the way we normally would define nationalism, but they have what I would call a sense of national pride. Back in the 70s, before he was overthrown, the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, he made a huge celebration, 2,500 years, excuse me one second, pardon me, since the great Persian Empire created by Khosroes, or we would call him Cyrus. They had huge pageants, people dressing up in the uniforms of that day. The Iranians have a tremendous national pride that goes way back. And in fact, you can easily say, and some people have actually said, that one of the reasons that Shiism was so accepted among them was because of this national pride, that they are superior to the Arabs.
What is the correlation between Shiism versus Sunni that makes it more related to national pride?
All right. Shiism, they felt, is special. They have the Mahdi. The Mahdi is the equivalent of like a Messiah who went away and is going to come back. It's very mystical, and Iran has a lot of very strong mystical tendencies in some of the ideas that they took out from Zoroastrianism and that later developed during the early Middle Ages and into the later Middle Ages. Initially, Iran was more Sunni, but Shiism took over during the later Middle Ages, the early modern period. That's when Shiism took over in Iran, and it really worked because of this concept of the Messiah, or the Mahdi, which is badly translated as Messiah. In fact, there are two major dynasties in Islam. There actually were three real dynasties besides the Turks. The first dynasty, which has been called the Arab dynasty because it was the only dynasty that was really Arab, that's the Umayyad dynasty, or Umayyad in English, and that dynasty from 660 until 749, 750, and then the next one, that dynasty was really almost a Persian dynasty. They overthrew the Umayyad dynasty, and they created the Abbasid dynasty, and the Abbasids rule, at least in name. After the 10th century, they're mostly in name, but they rule until the Mongols overthrow them under Hulagu Khan in 1258. And this to the Persians is the height of the Persians. They were ruling, and the capital, Baghdad, that was built right near Persia.
But how is that tying to Shia specifically rather than Sunni? That's what I'm confused about.
No, Shiism starts during the period when Ali is, after the death of Ali, he's killed in 660.
Oh, so what you're saying is that the height of Persian pride was when Shiism was taking root. Is that what
takes root? Mostly, it takes root 500-600 years later than that. But the idea was it was more in line with the basic attitudes of mysticism, which link up with the Persian psyche. This is why I think that it took, one of the reasons that it took root over there.
So mysticism has something to do with their national pride, as you call it?
I think, well, the idea was that also they feel that their version of Islam is the superior, correct version of Islam, that the Arabs are not sophisticated. The Arabs were very unsophisticated compared to the Persians. In fact, if you ask a Persian during the height of the Islamic, if you want to call it, some people call it Islamic Renaissance, which is really in the period from around 800 till about 1100, there's tremendous things going on in science there and medicine. Many, if not most, of the people that are involved in that area doing these things are of Persian descent. Even though they're doing it in Arabic, they're of Persian descent.
How would you distinguish genetically or by culture or by race? Like, what makes someone a Persian versus being an Arab? Because I hear this a lot over the last month or so, the distinction between Persians and Arabs. But I'm wondering if you can help define the distinction. Like, what makes it? I mean, is it purely just genetics, or
it's firstly linguistic? Persians speak Farsi. Farsi is an Indo-European language, while Arabic is a Semitic language. We'll start with that. Now, nevertheless,
they don't sound similar to each other?
What?
They don't sound similar to each other?
I'm going to make a point.
Okay.
In spite of what I've just said, I remember many decades ago when you were in school, you were in elementary school. The principal, I was in the building for something, and the principal goes, Dr. Neiman, I'm very glad you're here. I want to ask you, I need your help. I said, you need my help? Yes. I want you to translate a report card. I have an Arabic report card for a student who came in from abroad. He didn't tell me where he came from. So he hands me a report card. So I looked at the report card and I translated one or two words. And then I said to him, this report card is in Farsi. It's not in Arabic. So he looks at me, he says, so how could you translate those other words? So I said, well, Tarikh is history in Arabic, and the Persians took the word. And then I later actually found out that a word which in Arabic means physical exercises, which I thought was gym, in Persian means mathematical exercises. It's math. I did not know that at the time. I learned that later. So I told him, you can't rely on my translation because I'm translating from Arabic and the words have different meanings possibly. And that was the case in that particular instance. So what I'm saying is that there are tons of Arabic words in Farsi, in use in Farsi, even though Farsi, as I said again, is Indo-European, which is linguistically related more closely to English than it is to Arabic. Of course, Indo-European includes everything from Russian to Greek to German to the Romance languages, etc. Norwegian, Northern European includes a lot of different languages. It even, I believe, includes Hindi, and it includes Farsi. And these are things that don't sound at all like English. But in any event, coming back to where we were, let me.
So let me. So I want to just pull up a few chats here, just because So otherwise, I'll never get to them. So I sort of don't want to interrupt you.
People find this interesting.
No, they seem to be finding it very interesting. So I just want to pull up a few chats here before when you're between thoughts. I don't want to cut you off when you're in the middle.
All right. Well, we can pause now. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So first Uzelian. Apparently, there's a lot of questions about the whole Kurd thing, and I think we're going to get to that soon. But Uzelian says, "That's a great logic. We have a bad history of change in the Middle East. How does the fact that the Kurds are attacking Iran and other nations in the area support it? Will this change how well it goes?" Well, I want to come back to that in a moment because I had a couple of chats that were just, sort of graciously welcoming you. So I want to get to that and we'll come back to Uzelians.
I will talk about them for a few minutes.
Yeah. So Breck Nichols says, Joe, great logic. Woohoo. I'm going to give him the big horn here because he dropped 50. That didn't go. Joe, great logic. Woohoo. I've been waiting for this for weeks. I swear, much love from Dallas, Texas, God's country. So there, I believe you. And thank you.
I can't read that on the screen here. It's too small.
I'm sorry. No, don't worry. It was a compliment to you. So that was it. That was it from the that was it from that section. That was from Rumble. But we also have a bunch of chats I need to get to real quick here. Sir, I'm gonna need to see some ID for Gen X verification. How's the wife feeling about you trimming the beard? LOL. Oh, she definitely wants me to grow it back. She wants it trimmed. She wants me to grow it back, which is interesting because 10 years ago, she never wanted me to grow a beard, but now she's gotten so used to it that she said she didn't even recognize me.
I was told, by the way, that he's planning to do so.
I am in the middle of doing it. You can see, like another few days, I'll be able to trim it in. It's by the end of the week for sure. Shiloh also says we need a Papa Logic story about what you were like as a kid. Yeah, we'll try. I'll try to get
smart.
Okay, thank you.
He was precocious. They had a group in the school, and we were very glad they did this. Well, the Tigers, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah,
the Tigers.
How do you remember that?
Were the Tigers. He's one I know. I sort of kept up with him. He's a 10th level what you would call it, a statistician. Another one became a very important rabbi out west, and the other one, I don't know what happened to him. Anyway, yeah.
My father's referring to a reading group. We were assigned to different reading groups, and as it happened, the class that I was in had 3 other kids in it who were just ridiculous geniuses. So, and one of them is might be the smartest person in my age range I've ever met in my life. This guy was just ridiculous. So, and I spent 11 years trying to keep up with him in school and getting schooled every single time. The kid, that kid's brilliant. I'm saying kid. He's 55 now, but he's, to me, that kid is a genius. He's really a freaking. Rafi was just a genius. The other one was the other one he was referring to there. The actuary.
He's the one that became the rabbi. Yeah.
Yeah. The one who was an actuary is actually one of my closest friends.
He's out west. My wife and I were out west. We spent time with him when we were out west.
He's great.
I don't want to say where he is, but
we didn't even give his name, but yeah. Nanos, I don't know how long I'll make it either. Well, hopefully you'll make it for most of this show. Hit that like and subscribe for Papa Logic. Thank you so much, Daniel. I'm much obliged to that. And Liz,
thank you. Thank you.
Joe, I want to go to dinner with your dad. I will last for 10 hours. You're very, very kind. Thank you so much, Liz. You're awesome. So I do think it's appropriate that we, a lot of people have been asking about the Kurds, and we had Uzelian who was saying here. His question was, Dr. Great Logic. This was over here that I made a little bigger, maybe you'll be able to see it better now, where he basically said, Dr. Great Logic, we have a bad history of change in the Middle East. How does the fact that the Kurds are attacking Iran and the other nations in the area support it? Will this change how well it goes? No. And another question saying, I'm interested in Kurdish thoughts. So Can you weigh in about the Kurds?
Okay, let me tell you now. And the Kurds, if I were a Kurd, I'd be a very unhappy person, because the Kurds, between geography and politics, the Kurds really have gotten it bad historically. The most famous Kurd is someone who is not known for being a Kurd. He was the most famous Kurd, and his dynasty ruled the Middle East for roughly 70 years until actually 80 years, sorry, until they were overthrown by a very interesting dynasty, which we don't have time for here, but they're fascinating. His name was Saladin in English, or Salahuddin in Arabic, which means the rectitude, the straight one of the faith. Yusuf or Joseph, that was his name. He was given that title by the Caliph or the Caliph. The Abbasid Caliph gave him that name, that title, an honorific title. He is the most famous of all the Kurds historically. The Kurds, excuse me one second, I'm sorry. The Kurds have an area which is landlocked, totally landlocked. Today, it is part of Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. None of the three mentioned nations want the Turks to be independent. If the Kurds, and the Kurds, they speak Kurdish, that's a language, it's a very different language. I frankly do not even know what group it belongs with. Some people say that it's more like a Sinaitic language. And Turkish is, by the way, believe it or not, Turkish, Hungarian, and Finnish are Sinaitic languages, meaning they're linguistically related to Chinese. Not that someone who speaks Chinese is going to understand Turkish necessarily. The same way I don't understand Farsi, which is also an Indo-European language. But the bottom line is that the Kurds have gotten the short run of history. They have been abused. If you look, you see there, right, good. You see that map? Now Kurdistan. And you see pieces of Turkey, even a drop of Armenia, all right? Kurdistan, and there, Iraq, a little bit of Syria, and Iran. And everybody has taken advantage of them. They have not been independent except during the period when Saladin and his successors were in power, and they're kicked out in 1250 by the Mamluk dynasty that threw them out. So basically, that's the problem. The Kurds are Muslims, but from what I know about them, and I don't know much, honestly, the Kurds they have their own, a little different version of Islam. And at one point, I heard there were Jewish Kurds, but I've never seen anything about that.
So Kurds are a race, or are they?
They're an ethnic group.
They're an ethnic group. Okay.
They're an ethnic group. I don't say a race. They're an ethnic group.
Okay. Now I'm just trying to figure out like what makes someone.
You and me, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know that the Kurds fighting the Iranians is a good thing. I'm not at all sure about that. I understand why the Kurds want to fight the Iranians, but in terms of the total picture of the area, I don't know, because I can assure you, if you see the map you blew up there, you think the Iraqis want them independent? And sure, the Turks don't want them independent. There's no question. Armenia, I don't know about so much, but people want the territory, they want to control it. So I don't believe.
What I'm confused about is people say Arab, and I'm wondering, like, what makes someone. It just, to me,
Arab?
when I hear Arab, I think of folks living in the Middle East who are not Jews. I think of them all collectively as being Arab.
Well,
but now you're hearing about Kurds, Persians. So
the
that's
Kurds
what I'm
aren't Arabs.
So what? So
the Iranians are not Arabs.
So when you say, so where do Iranians come from? What makes someone an Arab? That's my question, I guess.
Okay. The Arabs come originally from Arabia. But during the 7th century, the Arabs conquered basically almost all of the Middle East. And by the end of the 8th century, or the middle of the 8th century, they'd taken all of North Africa all the way to Spain. They controlled all that area.
So Arabs basically come from Saudi Arabia?
Arabic.
So Arabs come from Saudi Arabia?
One second. Today, the normal definition of an Arab is someone who speaks Arabic as his native language. Now, so they say there are Jewish Arabs. Those are Jews who were born in Arab countries and speak Arabic. but they're known as Jewish Arabs. Many of them, of course, now were thrown out and they went to Israel. But the bottom line is that, for example, my cleaning lady, who's from Morocco, she's an Arab. She's from what they call the Maghreb, which means West in Arabic. They're from the western side of the Islamic world. Now, the Pakistanis, for example, and the Iranians are Muslims. They're not Arabs. They don't speak Arabic, but they learn Arabic if they're religious scholars, or they pray in Arabic. Many of them probably who pray in Arabic are not fully fluent in Arabic. The same way, how many people, Jewish people who pray in Hebrew, don't really know Hebrew well.
Right.
Knowing Hebrew well, you have to make an effort if you want to learn Hebrew well.
Right.
And there are many people who pray and they don't even know what they're saying, or they have an English translation. The same way I once got a Quran, which was a Pakistani Quran, and it had an interlinear translation into Urdu there, so that the people in Pakistan who speak Urdu were able to, to understand what they were reading.
Much like there are English prayer books for Jews today.
Right, yeah, similar kind of thing, absolutely.
So let's get back to the Kurds and their role in this entire conflict.
All right, well, the Kurds would love to have Kurdistan again. They would love to have, in other words, if they can throw the Iranians out of the areas that are predominantly Kurdish, they are hoping, I think, possibly to have independence, but at least, remember something, they're being persecuted. This regime persecutes people that are not Shia, that the Kurds are not Shia. They persecute people that don't agree with. There's a story of, I forget her name, of a woman who was walking around without a veil, and she ended up being executed. The regime is very, very austere, and a lot of people hate the regime, and that's why I'm saying that the approach of the Americans should be that we want to give you freedom. We don't want to impose a government. We want to give you freedom, and then you bring in somebody, maybe bringing in the crown prince, but you introduce the idea that you're going to get freedom and you're going to be able to walk around. The women can walk around dressed in Western clothing, and they won't be persecuted, and etc. This kind of thing, you'll be able to speak out and speak your mind.
Well, what if someone mentioned to me the other day that the Kurds also surround Tehran? It's not indicated like this on the map.
I have not seen this. I don't know. I don't purport to be an expert at all on the Kurds. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So the
look it up, but I didn't bother looking it up.
So you have no thoughts about if they play. You have no thoughts about whether or not they would be a positive or negative destabilizing force if they had a larger role in the formation of a new Iranian government.
Well, I don't. I think that they would want certainly the ability to teach Kurdish in schools, etc., and have some sort of semi-autonomy. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would want that. But I do think they very much are opposed to the clerical government that's in power now. By the way, there's a very interesting thing. When talking about the government, a fascinating thing. In Arabic, historically, the word Malik, which means king, is cognate with Melech in Hebrew, Malik.
Mm-hmm.
A number of people have that name. But to the Arabs, the word Malik was not a good word. They didn't like kings. In fact, one of the things with Shiism, the whole massacre at Karbala, which is one of the Shiite days of mourning on the 10th day of the 7th month, Muharram, one of the reasons supposedly was because the founder of a dynasty, the Arab dynasty, the Umayyad, his name was Muawiyah. That's where Umayyah comes from. He designated his son Yazid as a successor. And the Shia were very upset about this, and ultimately they were martyred. Hussein, who was the son of Ali, and again considered to be one of the imams by the Shia, he was killed, and this begins the real split. I shouldn't say begins; it really makes permanent the split, which it started. Now, I'm mentioning this because this was focusing on the idea of a king. Yazid is the son of the former Caliph named Muawiyah. Now, and that's a dynasty which will go forward. Later, it'll be a brother, but it's the same dynasty.
What time period are we talking now?
What?
What time period is this?
This would be in the end of the 7th century. Now, so it goes way back. Remember, Muhammad's the beginning of the 7th century. Now, listen to this. From what I understand, Khomeini, who was the founder of the revolution, really took over the revolution, and who created the Islamic Republic, he made a decree that there should be no familial succession whatsoever, that it's a republic. It is not a monarchy where A bequeaths the power to his son. Now, there's Mujtaba, which is, I say, a very interesting name because the name itself is a title for someone who is an expert in Islamic law. This Mujtaba Khamenei was not even an Ayatollah initially, according to a number of things I've seen. He was one level below that. It's called Hojatul Islam. And he ultimately, now he was given the position now of being the supreme leader. And immediately, of course, they started proclaiming that he was an Ayatollah, and they started throwing out all sorts of information, in order to vindicate him and to present him as proper. But in the schools, from what I understand, they had taught for the past 70 years, 70 years, or not 70 years, since 79, so that would be 50 years, 47 years, pardon me. Past 47 years, they had taught that there's no such thing as a succession in a family. So this,
which is interesting because the new successor is Khomeini's son.
That's his son, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, by the way, that family has a ton of money. The family has, according to one estimate, more than $17 billion. Yeah, these poor clerics, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, by the way, to divert you for just a moment before I get back to some chats here. How when you have a Shia that are controlling all of Iran, so I assume there are almost certainly many Sunni who were living in Iran.
Well, a number, yeah, sure.
So
they're not happy campers.
Oh, so that was my question: does Shia and Sunni tend to cross over in their faith, or is that something like, no, you're one or the other? This is like,
no. Well,
you rarely see Protestants become Catholics or vice versa.
During the Safavid period, which is the 15th, 16th century, that was when there was a mass conversion into Shiism in Iran.
When was that?
Generally, you don't have that. That is not usual.
Usually
not, and there's a lot of rivalry between them. And they have very different, and the words have different meanings. For example, just a simple imam in Sunni Islam means a leader in a mosque, a prayer leader. A leader would say maybe a rabbi or a priest or something like that. All right, imam in Shiism means the super holy man who disappeared away and will come back at the end of days. Vastly different meaning.
Right.
There are other terms too that have different meanings, not as profound as that, but they have different meanings.
Which came first?
No, the Sunni are first.
Sunni are first.
Sunni means tradition, following the tradition. Shia comes from the word Shiat Ali, the party, Party, like Democrats and Republicans, of Ali.
And that was a mass conversion, which happened when?
Well, the mass conversion happened in the 16th century, 15th, 16th century. But there were a lot of conversions before that. Definitely was an established movement, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Let me get to a couple of other chats that have popped in here. I keep waiting for Joe to hit the carriage return. Very funny. I actually just bought a new keyboard today, which is supposed to be coming tomorrow, and also a new mouse, because I'm starting to suspect that beeping noise is from my mouse connection. So I actually picked up a new keyboard and mouse to make myself as silent as possible for you. You won't even recognize me soon. I know. Imagine how it could be. I was like, Logic's like, I don't even recognize you now. Bogey says, great to see Great Logic. Thank you for your time, sir. And always keep up the great work, Joe. Thank you so much, Bogey. Thank you, Brian Odin. He was appreciating your answering the Kurd question. Carson mentions, for 10 years at day school, I heard you're smart, but not as smart as Mark Goldsmith. I invented an electric harmonica. How he's now a federal judge. Well, there you go. It's pretty much the same thing right there. Electric harmonica. That sounds kind of cool. Jim tells you, says, I would like to hear Great Logic's opinion on this case out of Indiana in which Jews for Choice sued and won challenging abortion ban. The judge ruled that they have a right to have abortions because it's their religious teachings.
I hate to tell you, I don't know who they are, but I assume it means that they are Jews who want the right to commit abortions or do abortions. This is not a Jewish religious teaching. Historically, maybe somebody, people sometimes create their own religious teachings, but this is not a traditional Jewish teaching. A traditional Judaism does not consider abortion to be acceptable.
Except in limited circumstances to protect.
Well, right. Except if the mother's life is in danger. Correct.
Right.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have said that.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, we're very strongly against abortion. Whenever I hear about Jews, it's good he asked you, because when I hear about Jews who co-opt Torah for purposes of some political agenda and twist it, I call that toeva. That's what we say.
Now translate that.
Well, I mean, toeva is improperly translated in English as abomination, but that's not really what it means. Toeva, I mean, we klap al chet, we pound our chests in remorse during the high holidays, saying ta'avnu, which means that we've twisted what actual truth into something, a perversion of truth, which is considered a really, really horrible thing to do. But that's what actual toeva means. It doesn't literally mean abomination the way that English translations too often tend to mistranslate. And this is, if I was talking about translations and how important that is, mistranslations like this make you really lose all sense of meaning of the word, because I don't even know what abomination means other than super bad, but it doesn't really mean, it certainly doesn't mean to me like it's a perversion. It's a perversion of truth, which God considers a horrible thing to do, because when you do that, when you pervert truth, it's almost impossible to set it straight again. That's why it's such a horrible thing. That's why it got mistranslated as super bad, because perversion is a super bad thing, but it actually means perversion. And when someone takes Torah and perverts Torah into saying something other than what Torah actually is supposed to mean, and they have their own personal purposes for doing that, they actually make the world a worse place. And I weep for the souls of people who actually make the mistake of thinking that this is something that is going to make them happy in the long run, because all they're doing is making themselves and the entire world a worse place. So they're terrible people. And
now, I would say, by the way, I don't know about this Indiana, this judge, but I'm willing to say there's a 75% chance that this judge is a liberal judge.
I would think more than 75%.
I would think that.
I would think more than 75%, because if you actually ask real Jews this question, like when I say real Jews, I mean practicing Jews. And in this context, the term real Jews, meaning practicing Jews, is important because they're alleging that this is what their faith says, when it's not at all what any faith or anything related to Judaism.
I would challenge them to find a traditional Jewish source that says that abortion is permitted unless the life of the mama is in danger. I would challenge them to find such a source.
It's a horrible, horrible thing. Sunset Gazing asks, what is Great Logic's opinion on Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi possibly being inserted as the leader until a democratic election process can take place. Would that be a good or bad thing?
All right. First of all, I don't think he's going to be inserted as anything until they know he won't be murdered the minute he gets off the plane. That's number one. Number two.
You mean murdered by the IRGC?
Right, or by somebody that supports the government. There are, I'm sure, at least 1 million people there who support this religious government.
Right.
There are people that support it, definitely. Not only the guys that were, swarming the aircraft carrier in their boats, There are a lot of people that support that regime, and there are people that had, as I said before, I think for economic reasons, support the regime. By the way, while we're on that, just let me mention this, and I'll come back to Pahlavi in a minute. There's a very interesting thing that happened that a lot of people don't even know about. Azerbaijan border, which Mossad uses when they want to get people out, but that border is now closed, and the Azerbaijanis closed it because the Iranians fired a couple of missiles at them. Now, that border is very important because there are trucks that come into Iran bringing raw materials, including metals that can be used to make bombs and missiles and all sorts of juicy things like that, and all sorts of other stuff, and food that comes into Iran through that route. And from what I understand now, there is a several mile long lineup, maybe even longer. That was 3 days ago. There may be a huge lineup there because the Azerbaijanis won't let them in. And a few years back, the truck drivers staged a demonstration, and a number of truck drivers were killed by the Revolutionary Guard. So the truck drivers have no love for the regime, and many of them, I'm sure, are not sorry that the border has been closed at this particular moment. As far as the Pahlavi is concerned, the reason that I think it might be a good idea to bring him in is that a lot of people will rally to him if you bring him in, which of course is very ironic considering that the grandparents of those same people threw out his father. But the bottom line is that I think he is a figure that people can and will rally to. I do think if he does come in, it should be a transitional government, definitely, because I think there should be a move, try to have a move for democracy. However, I want to make a comment about that too. To me, I've always said democracy is a very, very, what's the right word? It's a very fragile, that's the word, plant. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you plant democracy in an area where there has never been democracy, the chances of it working are very small. A classic example of that was South Africa, where they gave the locals power, and the locals took over, became totally corrupt, ruined the economy. In spite of all the diamonds that come out of there, they stole the money, and the situation there is horrible. It happens that I have, by marriage, my second marriage, I have a relative who was a lawyer in South Africa and who now left South Africa because of what's going on there. He and his wife emigrated from South Africa because of that. And they have filled my ears with what's going on in South Africa. What can I tell you? And that is because people were given power, but they abuse it. The concept of real democracy is alien. Now, there is no strong concept of democracy in Persia or Iran. And so I don't know how it's gotta come slowly. Democracy in England took hundreds of years. We are the children of England. That's how we have democracy. And
even we don't have democracy. We have a constitutional republic. So
we have a constitutional republic, right? Well, there is a fair amount of democracy, relatively. We have democracy here, relatively, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I understand, but that democracy is tempered by a constitutional republic, which ends up protecting the minority from being swallowed up by the majority.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay,
that's why it's worked here for a quarter of a millennium.
Right. Well, that's right. That's right, because of the Bill of Rights. Absolutely, right.
So you think if he came in there, that if as a temporary leader, do you think that would be a good thing? I mean, just bottom line, yes or no, would that be a good thing?
Yes, because I think it will give the opposition to the government someone to rally behind.
So he's a lightning rod.
Someone to rally behind.
Right. He's a lightning rod.
That's important. That's very important.
You're saying he's a lightning rod for the opponents of the IRGC.
Absolutely. Yes, I think so.
His father was kind of a tyrant. Like
he was.
It's very scary to think we're going to replace Khomeini with someone who's the offspring of a tyrant.
I understand that.
Even with promises of democracy, because let's face it, Khomeini promised democracy too. I mean, they know that the left wants, the West wants to hear democracy to get support, and that the Persians want to hear democracy. They're going to be telling us democracy, but that doesn't mean that once he gets in place, that he's actually going to come through on that.
Right. Well, it depends on the army. And
you think
that's true here too.
So when you say the army, I think that's a really important question, which I want to ask you next. Do you think the IRGC?
Let me finish what I was going to say.
Okay.
Something happened. A very, very beautiful thing happened that shows the wonders of this country. On January 20th, 1981, at around 11:45, a man by the name of Harding Carter, not the president, he worked for him, is on the phone with a general, and the Iranians were releasing the 444 hostages. They're releasing them, and they're in the plane, and the general's on the phone, and this Harding Carter is going, he writes this in his memoirs. He says, and I'm talking to the general, and I said, General, I'll get back to you in a couple of minutes. Please, I want to know what's happening here. And that was at about 10 to 12, 5 to 12. He calls the general back at 3 minutes after 12 p.m. And this is the conversation. General, what's happening? He says, Mr. Carter, sir, I'm sorry. I can't tell you what's happening. What do you mean you can't tell me what's happening? You just told me what's happening. He says, Mr. Carter, X minutes ago, whatever it was, you were a special assistant to the President of the United States. At the moment, you're a private citizen. President of the United States is Ronald Reagan. Therefore, I'm not allowed to give you any classified information. When I heard that, I cheered. I thought that was wonderful. That was wonderful for the good of this country. And not because I didn't like Carter. The point,
it was terrible. Carter was terrible.
It was terrible, but the point was the army goes with the Constitution.
Okay, so that sets up my question that I was about to ask you beautifully, which is, do you think there's a way that there's much likelihood that the IRGC would get behind the Crown Prince?
No, I think the IRGC has to be overthrown by the regular army, which might get behind the Crown Prince. The IRGC has a vested interest in maintaining it. They get all sorts of special things. Yeah, certainly the upper ones, and I don't even mean the dead ones that were killed. I mean, the officers, any of the officers, they have special things, and they want to keep that. And to be in the IRGC, you're vetted. You are a religious guy. I mean, you believe in the Ayatollahs and the theocracy.
Right. Yes, so you're saying they have to be completely.
They have to be eliminated or totally. Not going to do all of them, but they have to be broken apart. They have to be lose their influence and their power. Yes, I believe that, and that's what's going to happen. Look, now they're degrading. They said they're going to blow up factories and stuff. That's going to knock down that military-industrial complex.
The Iranian
one, it's very, very good. Mm-hmm. That's excellent that's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, I think 40 minutes behind, but good to hear. Great logic. Thank you so much. Regarding halakha and abortion, Gazella Pearl from OBGYN did abortions in Auschwitz to save pregnant women from Mengele's experiments. Again, that's to save.
That was a crazy thing. That's not a normative thing.
That's not really.
That's not. People did a lot of things in Auschwitz.
Yeah, you don't.
what am I going to tell you? They had no choice.
Yeah, you can't start bringing. You can't start bringing evidence about what actual Jewish law says based on conduct that was engaged in when people were in those horrific conditions.
Yeah, really. That's not normative behavior situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uzelian brought up over here. What do you think of a UK-style democracy being able to work in Iran, where they do have a king who can do stuff, but for a large part they're a figurehead?
Okay, well, today the king is 99% the figurehead, I think.
Right, that's the point.
After 19, well, you know what the king does? The king is a unifying factor in England. That's the only thing. If they keep the monarchy, that's why they're spending a fortune on keeping the monarchy. I don't know, maybe. Again, the problem here is that England, if you examine England, how democracy developed, especially during the 18th and 19th centuries, if you into the early 20th, if you look at that and you see it was a slow process where people were given little by little, things happen. When you throw it at people that have no idea what it is and how to behave in a democracy, it's very hard. It's a fragile plant. That's what I'm saying, to have a real democracy. And you have a constitution that's very nice, maybe, if they follow the constitution.
Mm-hmm. Daniel Weimer gifting 20 Good Logic memberships. God bless you, Daniel. Bringing in 20 new members of the following. Following 20 people were brought into the following, which is not at all a cult type of cult, and I am not at all the leader of the following. I'm just the host. When you hear your name, it's appropriate, seeing as how the following is an assembly of people who are interested in greater personal growth through community, unity, learning, and thinking, that you express your gratitude to Daniel Weimer for bringing you into this elite group. And that would include you, Cosmic Vader, Sledge-O-Matic, Eldo, Greece, Greskuse, Hockey Mama 39, Allen 54, RYS 1092, Susan Montgomery, Twisted Sifter, Tennessee, Halos and Horns, Nyack 8358, Casey Abel 8694, Tracy Troba 1718, LBUK, Blaze Storm 2009, Wendy W 2118, Jen Hoff, Scott C. Ped, Brent Fanning 527, and Amy Cornell 4171, as well as Janet Shapiro. Welcome to the following. Please bear in mind again that the following is not at all a cult type of cults. We can prove it if we must. Taylor TC says the IRGC is to the SS as the Army is to the Wehrmacht. You think
maybe I thought of that already. I thought of that comparison actually.
So there you go.
Could be.
Great minds thinking alike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really believe in it. Yes, and they have special privileges, which is exactly what the SS had. In Germany. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Jacko's Terra Argentum says, the problem I can see of the future of Iran is how to prevent it from becoming a little more than a vassal for China, India, or another Islamic state. Glad to see Great Logic, always worth a listen. Do you think that's a concern
I don't think it's vassal for both China and India.
He's saying some more powerful nation.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you this. One of the reasons China is the cheap oil, they're going to be very unhappy. They don't get that cheap oil. That is, there is a fellow who's a leftist. I don't have the name here. What is his name? Oh, nuts. He is now living in Shanghai. He's a black gentleman. Actually, he's originally from Sri Lanka, but he looks black. And he's a leftist. Royce, maybe you know the name. Remember the name? Royce Singham.
Okay.
And he has been funding a number of groups which are staging the protests against the war and against Israel and generally against the Republicans. And he is living at the moment in Shanghai. And he has a lot of money, made a fortune, and he used that money for, for leftist things. He's a convinced leftist.
Yeah, Singham. Yeah, Singham. Yeah, he's a very Singham is a very big supporter. They say he's the one who basically funds all these different groups and gives tens of millions of dollars to them for them to march against Trump on anything he does.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's a terrible human being. He's fortunately, I don't think he's Jewish. He's
no, he's from Sri Lanka. His family.
I'm just look. When it's not one of ours, we have to point it out. Okay, it's that's a thing. That's a thing around here. I'm like, okay, thank God this one's not one of ours. So, yeah, I wanted to. So just to before I move into like the stories that came out over the week. So if we can just get a synopsis, what do you think would be the ideal scenario here for the formation of a government? I assume it has that the Crown Prince would have some sort of role. And then I want to transition from that into what you think is the most likely, if you think that's not the most likely outcome. So I want to hear both the ideal and also what's the most likely scenario given what we know so far, if you want to make any predictions on that.
I think that one of the issues is that I don't think that it is advisable for us to stay in there bombing and fighting more than another 2 months or two because of the elections in November. I think it would be very bad for President Trump and for the Republicans.
And for the country.
And the country too. I believe that if the Democrats get control of the House, they'll waste the next 2 years trying to impeaching him. Not trying to, they'll impeach him. And we'll have to go through that garbage and that theater and circus that we went through last time. So I do believe the Americans are going to have to get out of there because of that. And I think the Iranians are aware of this, the same way that Hamas was aware of the disputes within Israel, which they say is one of the reasons they attacked when they did on October 7th, which, by the way, I'm not going to get into this here now, but it actually turned out, in spite of the horrors that it brought on Israel, turned out to be a huge blessing for Israel because it allowed Israel to take on Hamas and then Hezbollah separately without having the West Bank erupt, really, and certainly without having the Houthis get too involved. In other words, Iran had a master plan to overwhelm Israel with all of them together, and that didn't happen because of Hamas attacking when they did. But that actually turned out to be good. As far as Iran is concerned, I don't like to make a heavy production because I say, as you well know, the gates of prophecy are long sealed. I do think that it would be best if Pahlavi comes in there if he can, and if obviously we have to knock out the underpinnings of the government, and this Mujtaba, who's an interesting character and a real right winger, he has to be removed from power one way or another. I'm sure that between the Israelis and the Americans, if he emerges and they know where he is, he's likely to join his father in the other world, and his mother and his daughter and his wife. His whole family. And he's been swearing vengeance on America and Israel because of this, which means that he certainly is not going to be a good leader for the world if he's in power. So I really don't know. I don't know. I would like to see. The only name I have ever heard as coming in as a unifying factor is the Crown Prince, the Pahlavi. I've seen nothing else. On the other hand, I confess I am not an expert on Iran. I know a lot more about some other places than I do about Iran. But I do know that there is a very strong anti-clerical feeling among many, many people. And to wit, they shot and murdered some 30,000 people. And the ones that weren't killed, many of them were maimed. We don't even have the numbers of how many were maimed. And at one point, I understood that the doctors in hospitals who were taking care of the people who were maimed were being harmed by the Revolutionary Guard. So you're dealing with a regime that really is reeling and is very corrupt. But it's a regime that will do everything or anything it must to try to stay in power, because they believe they have a religious mandate to be in power to save Islam and the world. And that makes them extremely dangerous.
Yeah, it's a scary situation.
Yes.
I'd like to switch over to discussing the attempted bombing in New York City. So I don't know if you saw the clip.
I don't know much about it. I heard there was an attempted bombing, and some people, were two Muslims, I believe, were caught.
Correct.
That's all I know.
Here's a clip of it the moment that it was happening. Okay, this is almost like Schadenfreude. This guy here is a leftist liberal. His name is, I think, Walter Masterson. That's his name. He's busy screaming on his stupid little bullhorn here how New York City welcomes everybody. And watch what happens while he's doing that.
We were born and raised in New York, and we want everyone here to stay in New York. You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
That guy just threw a bomb. That was one of the terrorists throwing a bomb. This guy, who is figuratively a springboard for terrorists to come running in here throwing bombs, became a literal springboard for someone throwing a bomb right there in that moment.
That's not going to change his views.
Fortunately, the bomb ended up being defective. It didn't go off, but it did have the components of an actual bomb. So that's this. He was running off there, that guy. So no one was sure exactly what happened when that guy threw that thing. But it's sickening how you actually just showed how you understand the left, because that guy. I was saving this but since you said that, that's not going to change his mind on anything.
Of course.
Here he is the next day saying, I was in the middle of saying, as a born and raised New Yorker, we welcome everyone in this city, when he threw that over my head. And I still stand by it. This is the guy, Walter Masterson. As a born and raised in New Yorker, everyone is welcome, everyone except for Chief Goat Effer Jake Lang. Now, this was a counter protest to Jake Lang, and I want to be clear before I go any further. Jake Lang is a monster. The guy's a seething, insane racist. Now, the difference is he's not throwing bombs. He's just, he's just basically.
You know what your mother said about people like this? They're so open-minded that their brains have fallen out.
Yes.
Your mother, may she rest in peace, said this. Yes.
So this guy, who's a springboard for some terrorist throwing a bomb, it makes a thread here where he's fixated on this stupid racist. And this is the stupid racist over here. He's a clown. For those of you who are familiar with Jake, he's the one who lost the letter S. I don't even know what that is. I cannot stress this enough. It was right near our feet and did not look real. We just stood there laughing. Yeah, well, it was real. So that just makes you an idiot. Meanwhile, the inside femoids ran away, having been totally jester-mogged. Their cortisol levels have yet to recover. It was real. This actually was a real bomb. In fact, not only was it a real bomb, but if it had detonated, it would it actually had potential to be very, very dangerous. I had a thing here which was breaking down how lethal it was. I'm trying to find the right little thing. This isn't it. Got like a little lost here. Not sure. Let me see. Okay, I know where I can find it. Give me a moment. There it is. Do you want to know how dangerous this bomb would have been? New York City bomb upgrade to nightmare level. The homemade bomb thrown at anti-Islam protesters in New York City was packed with TATP, triacetone triperoxide, an enormously volatile, extremely powerful explosive nicknamed Mother of Satan. Here's a report on that.
Fox News has learned of a disturbing development involving the type of explosive used in the attempted attack and just how dangerous it is. Let's bring in retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow, who has more information on this device that was found. So it was a homemade device, Paul, but not necessarily a cheesy one, in other words.
No, not at all, John. And I have to tell you, having done about 15 years worth of this kind of work, counterterrorism work, this is a bit of a game changer. First of all, let me start by saying New York City got extremely lucky yesterday. TATP is enormously volatile. It is not very stable. It's extremely powerful. And it is the footprint, and if you go by past events of serious bombing attacks, the London 7/7 attacks, Richard Reed's attempt on a plane. Many of us remember the Ariana Grande attacks outside the Manchester Arena. These are situations where you're well into double figures of people killed, never mind injured. So this was a very, very serious, much more serious, I would argue, than it likely seemed to many right initially. And as to why they didn't detonate, in light of the fact that they were charged the way they were, is going to be something I'm sure that the federal authorities are going to be looking at very closely as they investigate these two perps.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it was a very, very serious bomb. I want to get your thoughts, Dad, on this particular bombing. Like, what do you?
Well, I believe that first of all, that the problem, if you open the city, you have these kind of characters here. I believe that the whole concept of sanctuary city is illegal, and I believe that Mandami should be stopped in everything he's trying to do here. That he is a problem.
Beast.
Legally stopped, I'm saying.
Right.
And excuse me. And this is a very dangerous kind of thing. On the other hand, I don't advocate throwing bombs at people.
Well, even Mamdani, I understand that.
Even Mamdani, yes, no, certainly not. No,
right.
I don't advocate that.
Here's the moment of his. This is him playing.
Well, thank God it didn't go off. Thank God the police weren't hurt. The police could have been blown up too.
That's the bomb there, and apparently, according to reports, when they were So that's when they were caught. You want to see their statement to the police? Because these two are winners. These two are real winners. Here's the statement. Amir Balat, one of the arrested people, told cops that he wanted Saturday's attack to be more deadly than the Boston Marathon bombing. Federal complaint alleges. No, even bigger. It was only 3 deaths. In the NYPD vehicles en route to the NYPD precinct, Balat, without being questioned by the NYPD officers transporting him, made the following spontaneous utterances, in part and captured on the transporting NYPD officers' body-worn camera footage. And the reason they say spontaneous, not question, is because he might not have been Mirandized. So they basically want to be like, look, this, I mean, he might have been Mirandized, but that he wasn't being interrogated, I guess, is likely what they're trying to say. This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet. We take action. We take action. And if I didn't do it, someone else will come in and do it. After arriving at the precinct and being advised of and waiving his Miranda rights, Balat requested a piece of paper, and after being given a paper and pen, wrote the following, quote, all praise is due to Allah. Excuse me, just a moment. I got Lady Logic's phone and he is asleep. My apologies. After arriving at the precinct and being advised of his rights, he said, his quote was, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State. Die in your rage, you kuffar. Amir B., based on my training experience, I know that kuffar is an Arabic term that references non-believers or infidels.
Right, kuffar.
And that die in your rage is a slogan used by ISIS and based on a verse in the Quran. Law enforcement officers later asked Balat if he was familiar with the Boston Marathon bombing and if that was what Balat had hoped to accomplish. Balat responded, no, even bigger. It was only 3 deaths. So that's where they're coming from.
In Islamic law, there are 3 stages of jihad. When you are a small minority, it's silent. You try to convert people. When you are a big minority, but not enough to take over, then you can be violent. And the third one is when you are a majority, you take over, and then you bring Islam in.
Yeah.
Those are 3 stages of jihad, which means war against the infidels.
It's pretty sickening. Pretty sickening indeed. I wanted to show you where these guys come from. Yeah, just so you can appreciate.
Afghanistan, I heard on the radio.
Well, maybe originally, but where they're coming from, like when they come here.
They're raised in America, yeah.
Not just raised in America. The parents of ISIS supporting New York City bomb thrower Ibrahim Qayyumi own a $2.5 million Pennsylvania mansion. The 5,800 square foot home in scenic Newtown, Pennsylvania features 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. His parents are naturalized citizens from Afghanistan who fled their war-torn country seeking safety and opportunity in America. And this is how their son repays the country that gave them a new life, by embracing extremism and hating this nation. Here's some video of their home.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. This is why when people say to me, they just want a better life. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Islam is a militant religion.
It's horrifying.
It's a militant religion.
Yeah. So the good news is that they have been arrested. They have been charged. Do you know what what Mamdani said about this?
I heard.
Here he is making his statement. This is one statement he made. Now, a lot of people are very outraged by this statement. I don't know if he made a previous statement to this one. Let me see if I had another clip of a previous statement that he made. Is this a previous one?
I don't think it was appropriate what he said. I've heard it. I don't remember it now, but I thought it was really not appropriate.
Yeah.
But what do you want? What do you expect?
This is his written statement. Okay, this is what. Can
you read it? I can't read it.
Yeah, I know. I'll read it to you. It's very small here. He wrote today. He wrote yesterday, while white supremacist Jake Lang organized a protest outside Gracie Mansion rooted in bigotry and racism. Such hate has no place in New York City. It's an affront to our city's values and the unity that defines who we are. What followed was even more disturbing. Violence at a protest is never acceptable. The attempt to use an explosive device and hurt others is not only criminal, it's reprehensible and the antithesis of who we are. He doesn't reference the fact that they were screaming Allah, Allahu Akbar, and they basically wanted to kill white people. No, he's basically making as if that's why they were here, because they were fighting against racism. And it was a response to that.
What do you expect from him?
I want to thank the brave men and women of the NYPD who acted quickly to keep New Yorkers safe. My administration is closely monitoring the situation. Let's hear him if there's anything more in this statement here, the audible version.
Of us were home at the time. This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy.
It's all fixated about the white supremacy, which again, it was vile. The dude's a vile human being. But he's not the one throwing bombs. You know, as terrible a person as he is, and he's scum, but he's not throwing bombs. So what about that?
Titled "Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City." I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city.
And that's why I'm not going to tell you that Muslims were bombers, I guess.
Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home.
And what about the Jews who
Yeah, seriously.
While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. Ours is a free society where the right to peaceful protest is sacred. It does not belong only to those we agree with. It belongs to everyone. I will defend that right every day that I am mayor, even when those protesting say things that I abhor. Let me also be clear about something else. New York City will never tolerate violence, whether from protests or counter-protests. Many of the counter-protesters met this display of bigotry peacefully, with a vision of a city that is welcoming to all. But a few did not. Two men, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Kayumi, traveled from Pennsylvania and attempted to bring violence to New York City. They are suspected of coming here to commit an act of terrorism. There is video of these two individuals throwing two devices towards the protest. The police department has determined that these were improvised explosive devices made to injure, maim, or worse. Thanks to the swift and decisive actions of NYPD officers at the scene, both men were immediately taken into custody, and the devices they brought taken off of our streets. I want to commend the officers who were on site.
All right. So I already asked you for your thoughts on this. Do you have anything more about based on what he's saying there?
I think he should have said they were Islamic, but he didn't. They're Muslims. You should have said that. But,
Right.
he's not going to say that. We've seen already how he talked.
Yeah, no, they're never going to blame it on that. In fact, what they actually try to do is they try to portray it as if the bomb was thrown by the white supremacists. So, like for example, over here, when the news is covering it, this is so slimy.
Is investigating two men after an explosive device with bolts and screws was thrown into a crowd.
Look at how they frame this story. They show a picture of a Trump guy with his fist in the air.
What?
And there's, yeah. There you go. That's CBS. CBS News reporting on this.
Look, they're very bad.
Screws.
The main news is very bad.
It's unbelievable. I mean,
It's
this
really
is just
wrong. I mean, what am I going to say?
that's
But we know this
unbelievable.
already.
Happened in New York City.
I never listened to them. The only one I listen to is Fox.
It's like, and then if you see the guy really quickly, for all you know, he's a Trump supporter. You know what I'm saying? Given the framing that they're given, it's unbelievable. It's really shameless. It's shameless and shameful, both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you this. I set a goal up when we started. I don't know how much strength you have left, Dad, but I set a goal up when we started that if we hit a certain number of super chats, that I was going to have call in where you would like field some questions. If you still have some strength, maybe we'll give a few minutes
Well,
of
a few
that.
minutes, but not. I'd rather not go till midnight. All right. Okay.
Okay, we're ready. We're 11:30, so I'll take a couple of
Another
calls.
10 minutes. All right.
So I'm going to basically call it as if we hit our goal, just because I feel like we came very close, and technically some people gave very generously. So like I like to, whenever we get close, I try to like give the nod. So I am going to open up the phone lines. Those of you who want to call in and ask and talk to my dad, ask some questions, whatever it is. The number for you to call in here is 972-454-0703. I'm going to ask if you can keep your phone call relatively short, because you know my dad doesn't have much more time left here. But I'm going to put that number up here on the screen. It's 972-454-0703. I'm going to remind you to please hit the like and subscribe. And when we get calls coming in here, we will we'll pick them up. That number is 972-454-0703. And please, if you could hit like and subscribe, I would be most obliged. And look at that, we already have a call. You get them to call much faster than I do, Dad.
Call from
This is Thad the Man.
Who?
Thad the Man.
Hi, Joe. I'll keep it short to two things.
All right.
First, I heard a rumor that Tucker Carlson is saying that Trump was replaced by a golem.
What?
He's saying you heard a rumor that Tucker Carlson claimed that Trump was embraced by a golem. Okay. A golem is not a possessor. That's an interesting thing because a golem is not an entity. A golem is an entity from Jewish folklore, but it's not something that would possess anyone. If it's sort of almost like
I said replace.
Oh, replaced by a golem. Oh, okay. Okay, that's funny.
Okay. So now let's go on to would your father recommend to you watching videos of Raymond Ibrahim?
Who is that?
That's your father.
You know who Raymond Ibrahim is, Dad?
No.
He
I
doesn't
don't know
know.
who he is.
He's saying he doesn't know who that is. He can't hear you. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for you, Dad.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm just telling
He's
you.
a student of Victor David Hanson.
Mm-hmm.
No, I know who he is.
Who does a lot of historical stuff about Christianity and Islam, same area as your father.
Mm.
Yeah, I know who he is. I know who he is.
Someone
suggested I should make videos. I like that.
People have suggested that you make videos, but I mean, I think people would really enjoy it if you did. So go for it. Go for it. I'll promote you. Anything else, Dad?
On the elections, I'm not so worried the Democrats will win because they'll impeach. They won't get convictions. And the only bad thing about that will be that they'll impeach Pam Bondi and Trump won't replace her because of that. But then come 2030, they'll be running on a series of impeachments.
Well, my dad is pointing out that it just ends up wasting a lot of time.
And it'll impede him doing other things.
The guarantee is 2030, and in 2030, we will control the census.
No, hopefully. I mean, we're a long way from that, and I don't know if we're going to ever get there if we don't have a GOP Senate willing to abolish, to invoke a standing filibuster. Right now, we can't even get the Save America Act.
I'm not worried about that. In fact, I don't want Paxson to quit.
You don't want what?
Paxson to quit.
Oh, Paxson to quit? Well, I'm saying get it without him quitting. It shouldn't be that he has to quit. But
he made that promise.
He said, "I'll back out if you." I mean, he said, "I might back out." That's what he said. All right, Dad. Thank you for the call. I appreciate you, brother.
You're welcome.
All right, take care. Have a good night.
Bye.
Did you hear? By the way, I'm just letting you know, Dad, and my audience as well, that Trump said he's not signing another bill. The next bill he's willing to sign is the Save America Act. And he's not signing another thing before that one. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, there's I think I have a clip of it here. Let me find it for you real quick, because I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to see it for yourselves.
Yeah.
I think this is it right here. I think this is Carolyn Levitt talking about this. He sent out a True Social post, which if this is not the right clip, in that case, I'll share the True Social post here.
There should be no pushback to any of the common sense proposals in the Save America Act. Let's talk about what is in this bill and what President Trump is pushing for here. Mandatory voter ID in the United States of America. 90% of our country, Democrats and Republicans, support this common sense solution to secure American elections. The only people in this country who don't support that are radical left Democrats on Capitol Hill. That's number one. Number two, requiring U.S. citizenship to register to vote. Another common sense measure that absolutely must be done to secure our elections and the future of our country. And with these other two ideas, with no men in women's sports and with ending transgender surgeries for minor children, these are common sense proposals and policies that, again, are backed by the vast majority of our country. If you look at the public polling from Americans on both both sides of the aisle. Most Americans don't want young children to be going through gender mutilation surgeries. Most Americans don't want men competing in women's sports. These are winning issues for the American people. They are losing battles for politicians on Capitol Hill. And that's why all members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, need to pass the Save America Act as soon as possible.
There you go. That's under the banner of Trump won't sign any bill until the Save Act passes. I think that's a smart move. It's a smart move. I was told to ask you, beard or no beard for me? What are your
my
thoughts?
opinion is?
Yeah.
My opinion is whatever you would like.
See that? That's a good dad right there. I'm going to reopen the phone lines again because I had that shut down while I was playing that clip, but I am going to reopen it now. So that the number is 972 454-0703, 972-454-0703. And Cars and Dimension says, I'd say a Tucker is more likely possessed by a Dybbuk. What happened here? There we go.
Call from
Joe Sound Guy.
To
There you
accept,
go.
press
My
1.
sound guy's
to send
calling.
a voicemail, press 2.
Joey.
Hey, all hail. The Great Logic is with us.
Yeah, the Great Logic is in the house. How you doing, brother?
I'm very well. If it's much better to be two of me.
Yeah, just to clarify for my father, this is someone I've saved my phone because I've contacted him so frequently, called under the name Joe Sound Guy. He's a sound expert who has been a follower of the show since pretty much my first live stream, and he's been an invaluable help whenever I've been struggling as a boomer dealing with audio and sometimes even visual. So and I even had the privilege of meeting him about a month or 6 weeks ago or so. So
it was wonderful to see you that day.
Yeah.
Thanks for the coffee and the Danish. That was actually a fun experience.
My pleasure.
Nice. We'll talk about that. A question for the Great Logic. Came in late. I didn't hear the earlier part of the show, so forgive me, please.
That's okay.
What's the question?
You've got to kill Junior. True or false? I don't see a way out of this without us killing Junior.
He's asking, should we kill Khomeini Jr.?
I assume this will happen. I assume it's going to happen if they know where he is, unless he hides out.
He's saying he's assuming it's going to happen if they know.
I assume it will happen.
If they know.
If the Americans don't do it, the Israelis will do it.
And since Thomas Jefferson is not going to pop up out of Iran anytime soon.
Not likely.
What does he think is most likely to happen next? And I'll get off the call and
what did he say?
He was asking.
Chatting with everybody.
Thank you, brother. Great hearing from you. So he was asking, what do you think is most likely to happen next? Since we don't have Thomas Jefferson to, create a Declaration of Independence for them. So what do you expect is the most likely thing to happen next?
Yeah, I told you. I mean, to me, it's probable that you're going to because he's the only one that has some sense of national figure there that's against the government, that he's going to be
the Crown Prince.
The Crown Prince will be put in some way, but hopefully as an interim thing, not as a permanent thing.
Uzelian asked a question of you here. Dr. Great Logic, one more question for you. Off topic, how does it feel to have a son who's not only in a cult, but is the leader of it? Did he give you a tracksuit yet? It's not at all a cult, so I don't even understand.
No, it's not a cult. I don't think this is a cult.
No, it's not at all a cult type of cult. Thank you. See, my dad knows. My dad knows it's not at all a cult. So just because it's called The Following doesn't mean it's a cult. People get very easily confused, apparently, about stuff like that. But I'll take one more call if it comes in quickly here.
That's it, because I really have to go.
I feel like my dad is fading quickly, and I certainly don't want to keep him here. Too late into the night. He's as I said, he's an octogenarian, so I have a little pity on him. I actually have one person who called in here a bunch of times. Maybe I'll just give a call back. Should I try that? Let's do that. Not sure. They called several times. Let's try it. Why not? We'll do it that way.
972.
No, I got it.
972 is the area code for Texas.
Yeah, that's my
The
Google
country
Voice
code
number.
for Israel. What?
Hello?
Hello. Yeah, you called?
Yes.
What?
Oh, yes. I seen something earlier this morning that says about the whole predicament with Iran. I remember a few months ago, Trump made a declaration where he was saying of how he's going to be the one to pick the Iran leader. But what the predicament I read this morning about was there was an Iran leader who had his son that was suicided by the Iran, I guess, basically terrorist group. And for the last 9 years, that one particular Iran leader has been trying to orchestrate in order to actually put Iran back in order. And what Donald Trump has basically done is being able to give that Iran leader access back to straightening Iran properly back out.
Are you referring to the Crown Prince?
I think that's who it because
it would have to be. That's the only one that fits.
Supposedly suicide.
The only one that fits it all into that.
By some group of people from Iran, and that leader has been in shambles, or has basically been unable to properly put Iran back in order because of that terrorist that we had recently blown to pieces, basically.
Right.
But
well, my father mentioned that the advantage to the Crown Prince, who is the son of the Shah, is that he has enough gravitas that he could be a political lightning rod for an actual political change. So he's someone who they can rally around. I guess he's the Iranian equivalent of a Trump, right? Where he's someone that they could rally around, and in that sense, perhaps inspire the Iranians to help rid themselves of the IRGC and the controlling Shia. So, yeah, my father has a
following World War I in Turkey. There was a revolution.
I was just
hold on one second, sir. I didn't catch your name. What was your name, sir?
My name's Cameron.
Cameron. All right. So my father's saying something right now. You cannot hear him. There's the way that it works is when I have a guest in here, he can hear you, but you cannot hear them. So if you could, I'll just let you know when he's done, and I'll convey to you what my father says. And that's not your fault. You wouldn't have known that. Hold on. So go ahead, Dad.
Following World War I, a strong man, Mustafa Kemal, seized the government, and he decided that he was going to try make Turkey more of a democracy. He gave everyone last names. He took the name Atatürk, which means father of the Turks. And he also forced everyone to learn the Roman alphabet instead of using the Arabic alphabet, because Turkish is more suited with its multiple vowels to the Roman alphabet than to Arabic. It also turned Turkey and made it more into a Western country. He outlawed the hijab, the veil. He made other things like this, forced women into Western dress, and he did a great deal to modernize Turkey. And he was a strong man. And now, well, you now have a strong man in Turkey, but he was elected the strong man in Turkey. But the bottom line is that it's possible to do these kind of things if someone has an army and the backing. He has to get the backing of the regular army, and we have to blow away enough of the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, that he'd be able to do it.
So just to sum up what my father just said, that I know you couldn't hear, was he said in Turkey there was a similar circumstance where they had a very strong leader who was able to help bring in Westernization of their culture. And it's possible that something like that could happen in Iran similarly. But if you want to get the full thing, and I'm going to let you go now, my brother, but if you want to get the full thing, if you go to 1 hour and 42, that's when he started answering your question. So that you'll be able to hear him express it far more eloquently than I was able to reconvey.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, personally, I find it funny as hell of how Donald Trump actually became president, because honestly, when I was a sophomore in 2004, I wrote a book report saying Donald Trump should be president.
Oh, really?
My entire and my entire class laughed at me, and my teacher stood up after I said that, and my teacher said, "You don't need to shut the hell up. He's making a damn good point." And when my teacher said that, it kind of just completely shifted my perspective that you can't pay attention to what the sheeple say and what people say around you, because it's utter stupidity. I mean, look at television nowadays, and it's almost pathetically sad to even watch it.
Mm-hmm. Well done.
I mean,
look at you.
Yes, I love watching your podcast because you're very informative, and you help to actually straighten my perspective when it comes to all the trash that's going on in the world.
Good. That's exactly what I'm hoping to do. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate you, brother. What was your name? First name again?
Much.
What was your first name?
Yes, it's Cameron, sir.
Cameron. All right. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you, my friend. Have a great night.
God bless you. Thank you. You as well. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. So, Dad,
well,
I thank you for joining me. I'm not gonna just hang up just yet. I have other stuff that I'm gonna present, but I want to thank you, Dad, for joining me. And
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. You were really on fire tonight. You were just everything is just
thank you. It's
fitting.
my pleasure. I wish everyone in the audience good health and success, and we should see America better off continuously than it's been until a year ago.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
All the
Have
best.
a good night, Dad. I love you.
All right, people. I love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so that was Great Logic. I have a couple of other things I wanted to share with you guys before I go, which I didn't expect to be able to get to because I knew that I was going to rush my father to get through certain things that I covered. But there was a couple of other things I just wanted to share with you about that, about their arrest. They have been charged, and here's Jessica Tisch from the NYPD police commissioner talking about their initial arrest, and then we'll get to their charges in just a moment.
As alleged, both defendants have admitted that they acted on Saturday because of ISIS. As Qayyumi was being placed into an NYPD vehicle following his arrest, a person in the crowd asked why he had done this. As shown on NYPD body-worn camera footage referenced in the complaint, Qayyumi responded with ISIS. And at the precinct, after being advised of his Miranda rights and waiving those rights, Qayyumi said in recorded post-arrest statements that he had watched ISIS propaganda on his phone and that his actions that day were partly inspired by ISIS. The complaint also details statements made by Amir Balat after his arrest. En route to the NYPD precinct, Balat made spontaneous statements without being questioned by NYPD officers that were captured on body-worn camera footage. He said, "This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet. We take action, as well as, if I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." And later, after waiving his rights, he requested paper and wrote a message declaring in part, "I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State. Die in your rage, you kuffar." Now, die in your rage.
And I just want to point out, this schmuck here is why this stuff happens. This schmuck. I mean, not him individually, obviously, but this guy who basically, even when he's used as a launching pad, a literal human launching pad, and that's what happened. The guy jumped on his back to throw the bomb. He's used as a literal launching pad. He still says, "Oh, we welcome these people." This lunatic leftist, which infects New York and other urban areas. This guy's a stark raving lunatic. He might not go around screaming all the time. I mean, he has his little bullhorn for those special occasions, but the idiocy that he spouts. And he thinks he's educated. He probably is educated in the classical sense of the term. He's an educated moron. And the education is propagandized into basically being a political cock. That's what it is. where we're going to let people come in here and basically destroy our country, and we should be proud of that. We should be proud of, like, oh, that we're such good, moral, virtuous people. And these people are a menace. They really are. They're like basically they're a steroid for cancer. I don't know if that metaphor works. I'm not sure how steroids interact with cancer, but I think you understand what I'm saying. There's cancer, and then these people the enablers serve as a steroid for them. And this guy is a steroid for that cancerous tumor which is infecting our country right now. They're every bit the problem. They really are. I don't wish ill will. I don't wish physical harm to come to these people, but I do think that they need to be mocked and shunned and put in their place. Not physically, but emotionally, psychologically, just basically removed from society as far as having any influence or say in how we do anything, because they're self-destructive. And their self-destruction ends up harming all of us, not just themselves. If they're only harming themselves, that would be tragic enough. But they're basically enabling people to harm society writ large. And that's inexcusable. It really is. A couple of other things I wanted to cover for you real quick here. A couple of other side notes. Someone was talking about Tucker Carlson. This I thought was funny, and I wasn't sure where to tuck it in, and I didn't want to do it in the middle of my father being here, because there I was really focusing on Middle Eastern stuff when my dad's here, just because I figure that's his thing. It was this. That's it. In fact, I didn't really cover this where he said, I'd say that Tucker's more likely possessed by a Dybbuk, but I really think he's mostly grifting after discovering Jew haters are a good-sized market. Listen to this. Thank you for setting me up with this.
I think U.S. aid, military aid to Israel, and the implied security guarantees, some explicit, but many implied security guarantees of the United States to Israel probably haven't helped Israel that much long term.
Oh, it hasn't helped them.
You know, it's a rich country with a highly capable population. Like every other country, it's probably best if it makes its decisions based on what it can do by itself.
That country couldn't exist not for a week without U.S. backing.
America's supporting Israel because it's an ally.
I don't even know what those words mean. I'm just saying principle.
They're an ally, right? I mean, they both.
I don't know what that means to be an ally.
Qatar is like one of our closest allies in the world. The largest American air base in the Middle East is in Qatar. They're a close ally of ours.
Let me get to the nub of the question, since, again, a lot is at stake. A lot of money is at stake. Land is very valuable. Israel has a lot of resources. We have a huge country. This is a country the size of New Jersey with no resources. I come to Israel and the infrastructure, we were flying in, and I said to my buddy, I was like, man, first of all, it looks great. I love the agriculture in Israel because it's beautiful. I love green. I love plants.
I remember when it didn't look like that.
Yeah.
First time I came here 53 years ago.
It's great. Israel, which is one of the single ugliest countries in the world. Nothing of beauty has been built there since 1948. Sorry, I've been everywhere in that country, and it's true. Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization.
Raised some eyebrows this week when you said that Hamas is more like a political organization than a terror group.
I didn't say that. An attack on Western civilization looks like this. It's tribalism. It's identity politics. It's DEI. It's whatever. It's Zionism. It's any belief system that begins with the understanding that one group is morally superior to other groups. Well, just on principle, like every other group in the world has the right to its own homeland except white people? Like what? We don't think in terms of groups as Christians or Westerners. We think in terms of the individual. It's literally that simple. But as long as some groups have a right to self-determination, then every group has a right. It's that simple.
So that was actually just I thought a really wicked comment. What do you call that? Collage? That's not the word. You know what I'm trying to say. You know the word. I'm not looking for compilation. But yeah, that thing. I thought it was done well. But speaking of hypocrisy and talking out of both sides of their mouths, you couldn't really have that conversation without this woman right here. Kamala Harris.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
Well, there are different reasons that we should be thoughtful about each. Most recently, I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. And
Iran, huh?
look, I mean, Iran has American blood on their hands.
Oh.
Donald Trump has dragged us into a war the American people do not want. He has put American troops in harm's way. I unequivocally oppose this war of choice, and everyone should.
I mean, what happened?
Well, I mean, I think it's what happened now. But first, I really have to say that now, if someone identifies America's top risk and or threat, and someone dispatches that in about 3 or 4 days and makes it impossible them to acquire nuclear weapons and their missile program, why isn't that a good thing? I don't know why that's not a great thing. And Hillary Clinton said the same thing back in 2015 when she was running in president. You know, virtually every Democrat that I'm aware of says we can never allow Iran to acquire nuclear bombs, and they were a significant risk to America. So I know why they don't say that now, because I'm aware that it is very damaging as a Democrat to just happen to agree with the president on anything. But for me, that's easy, a country over party what demands. Now, I don't know why we can't just be honest saying that, you know, the last two professional candidates for the Democratic Party all agree that we can never allow Iran to acquire nuclear bombs, and that's made that possible now. I think we can say, hey, that's a great thing. That makes the world more safe, more secure, and holds Iran accountable.
So yeah, apparently Fetterman gets it. He's not afraid to compliment someone who's on the other side of the aisle for doing good work. But yeah, but most folks from the left really struggle with that. Really struggle with that. Every time Kamala speaks about doing Beyonce lip wipe, want to be $100 fine. I don't know what a Beyonce lip wipe is. What is? Do I have to look that up? Or should I should probably just assume that I understand what he's trying to say. Beyonce lip wipe. I want to see if that's an actual term. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna let that one. I'm gonna let that one just play it where it falls. You play it where it falls. And the last thing I just wanted to cover before I get on out of here is this totally not related to anything I've covered tonight, and I don't care. I don't care because I saw this and this was just horrifying. I guess it ties into the whole Save America Act and just what a disaster our elections are. So there was we had a passing moment. You and I had a moment where we were talking about that, or at least I was talking about it. You might not have been talking about it, but I definitely referenced it here on the show. Oh, and I forgot to check. Sengland said, if you see this in time, I'd still like to hear Great Logic's take on the tares in Matthew. I didn't see it in time. Sorry about that. That was in the digger dollars. I apologize for that. But all right, let's cover this real quick. We were talking about the Save Election Act. You are not going to believe what the testimony that came out here about election rolls. This is something that should horrify you as to just how bad things are in one state in particular. This time, not Minnesota. You would think all the fraud happens in Minnesota. No. Massive problems in Michigan.
Respectfully, Representative Smith, the fact that there are, in fact, some errors that happen in the system. Every system has errors, and it doesn't mean that there are not safeguards in place. There are safeguards, and you as a clerk, having done many registrations previously, understand that there's a process that you go through. And you can ask NASA. There's no process that doesn't have some error inherent in the system.
Okay, thank you.
They're just like NASA. They're just like NASA. All right, look, there's some problems sometimes. Sometimes there's problems, But they're pretty much like NASA. Look, even NASA has problems. You know, even the greatest space program on Earth, or supposedly maybe the second greatest after SpaceX. But you know, one of the two greatest space programs on Earth, even they have flaws sometimes. So what do you want? We're just like NASA.
And you're very right. When I was a clerk, there were lots of errors in the system. That's largely why I am here. I took off a dead voter in my township. And guess what? That dead voter was put back on. Not by me. That was done by the Secretary of State's office. So we need to do a lot of fixing.
They put a dead voter back on. Wait. Who took off this dead voter? We need this person back on.
Here in our elections. When I was a clerk at Martin Township, there was a family member who at one point was registered at my in-laws' home. And that family member had died nearly 20 years prior. They were put on the rolls at 2020. They were mailed voter application ballots without the authorization to do that. That's the local clerk's job. So I went in there, removed her from the voting rolls because I know firsthand this family member is dead and deceased. Just this past election cycle, lo and behold, that person was put back on the voter rolls and has a card of the early voting location polling that I actually have and can produce. And that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. I agree. You can say it with your Michigan accent or any accent. That is a problem. That is a problem. This is why we need the Save America Act, not the Save Act, the Save America Act. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's a disaster. It's a disaster what's going on out there. That's obviously everyone will be like, well, that's one person. No, it shows what the systemic problem is. It's a systemic problem. And that's one state. You wonder why, when they have that whole banner where they show like all of a sudden in the middle of the night in 2020 that like, the blue line was going like this and went like that and then jumped over the red line, which spelled the F in fraud. Yeah, that's Michigan. That's Michigan right there. So over under on current Fetterman just being Trump in a Fetterman skin suit. It would explain so much. It really would explain so much. Emerlock says, Joe, love Great Lawgic. Question. My Jewish doctor, IA, proving a colonoscopy on my Passover. What would be? I'm assuming, I don't know if you're getting a colonoscopy while you're actually writing this. I don't know. I'm wondering if you're like under like a localized anesthesia when you're typing this out, Emerlock. But I'm assuming that you're saying, what would be a good to win a gift him before the procedure? Thanks for 38 wonderful months. If you're asking like a good gift, is that what he's saying? Is that what he's saying? I'll tell you what a potentially good gift is. This is a story which is both funny and tragic. Both funny and tragic. True story, both funny and tragic. So, on the first and second night of Passover outside Israel, in Israel they only have it on one night, but we have 2 nights here in America and in most of the world. We have something that you may have heard of called a Seder. By the way, the holiday of Passover is coming up in like a little over 3 weeks, just around 3 weeks. So the first night of Passover, we have a Seder. A Seder is like basically a traditional meal. where we invest a great deal of time talking about our redemption from Egypt. That's what the holiday of Passover is celebrating, we're celebrating that miracle. It's actually the miracle of the night that God passed over Jewish homes and he killed the firstborn of the Egyptians. The reason it's called Seder is because Seder is the Hebrew word for order, meaning there's a set order of like 12 steps that we're supposed to go through during the course of this evening, and it takes hours to go through it properly if you're going to do it properly. And it's a very important traditional. It's a very important tradition in our Jewish faith, which has been going on for thousands of years. So the book that we read from, and everyone reads from the same book, is called a Haggadah. So the night when we're having the Seder, we all read from the Haggadah. And it's got certain passages in there, and different Haggadahs look very different from each other. The essential words that we read and say over will be the same. Some of them have detailed rabbinical explanations about what various passages that we read during the course of the Seder. There's a whole series of passages that we read. It goes on for many pages, and we go through the whole book while sitting at the Seder. And like I said, my Seder normally runs for, 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. I would say like a minimum of 4 hours. And you basically start like an hour after sunset or so, after we get back from our prayers, and you finish like at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. This is commonplace in Orthodox Jewish homes. Even in irreligious homes, they'll have a Seder, which will usually be a lot shorter, from what I understand. But everyone goes through the Haggadah, or at least anyone who's really trying to go do a Seder is going to go through the Haggadah. And there's a lot of different kinds of Haggadahs. A lot of different kinds. Like I said, some will have different rabbinical explanations about what the various passages we're reading means, or different questions. Why does it say this word? Why does it use that phrase? Why does the Torah use this phrase? Why the rabbinical authorities who wrote these passages, say this? Some of them will have pictures. And different kinds of pictures. You'll see pictures which are supposed to be portraying different things we're reading about. I've seen one which is showing pictures from like a 16th century Haggadah, and the pictures that they had in that Haggadah in the 16th century, and it was recreated. So some of them will look just visually really beautiful, like really beautiful. Others will be more about the rabbinical interpretations of what the passages we're reading on, and it'll really look like a book, either in Hebrew or in English, or I guess other languages. I assume there probably are Haggadahs as well. I found, so when it's time for the Seder, so everyone grabs their own Haggadah. And usually in many houses, they'll have an assembly of different Haggadahs. So most people are sitting there reading from a different Haggadah. The main essential words are all the same, but the ones we're actually looking through will be distinct from each other. Some will focus more, younger kids or women will tend to focus more on the pictorial type of stuff. The older men will tend to fixate on things that have different have different questions and answers and interpretations. So I saw this one. The reason you have to understand all this context for this relatively short story I'm giving you had more buildup than punch. But this really, I'm going through different Haggadahs, and when I'm sitting there, we have like a box of different Haggadahs. When I was at my in-laws one year for the Seder, and I pull out this really big, beautiful. It was obviously a very expensive book. Right. I mean, it was like hardcover with like these beautiful illustrations and pictures, and the paper looked like, this very high, like expensive paper that's not going to rip, and all these beautiful pictorials. It was this whole big, beautiful thing. And on the front cover, someone had written an inscription. Something that says something like, "Dear Zach, throughout my life, the Seder was always an important time for me. And it's my prayer for you and your children and your family that this legacy will become an enduring part of your legacy, and this Haggadah will help inspire you into into spending a great deal of meaningful time reconnecting with your faith and bonding with your family in a way that makes Passover truly meaningful for you. Really beautiful inscription. And I was like, so I said to my father-in-law, "Who's Zach?" And he looks at me, he's like, "Huh?" I was like, "Who's Zach?" And he's like, "I don't know." I was like, "What do you mean? It says here, Dear Zach." I was like, and it's like, it was signed like, love Brenda, whatever. He's like, I was like, "Who's Zach?" He's like, "I don't know." I was like, "What do you mean you don't know?" He goes, "I bought that like at some book sale for $1." I was like, oh my God. This family, they said they were hoping this will become an heirloom for your family and become our family legacy. And it's like literally sold for $1. This book, which looked like, it must have listed for like $50. Sold away his whole heritage for $1. I thought it was both funny and really, really sad. It was both funny and really, really sad. When I saw it, I was like, this is like the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. And yet, when you tell me you bought it for $1, it's kind of funny. And I guess it plays into the whole Jew buying something for $1. I guess Zach didn't really treat it like the family heirloom that Brenda had in mind. It wasn't quite the family heirloom he was looking for. So, anyway, and with that, I thank you all for joining me. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, drop a comment. Tell me what you thought of my dad. I wish you could have seen him. He's looking spry, thank God. He's looking good. But his camera, he couldn't get his camera to work, and he's like an hour away, so I wasn't able to fix it for him. But he was great. He was on fire tonight. And also, lab meat was never meant for you. It's meant for they, them. So stay away from the lab meat because it's not for you. And also, do not eat the bugs. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Have a good night, everyone. And as always, Godspeed.